Billy Bob Thornton stars in Landman, the newest series from Taylor Sheridan with Demi Moore and John Hamm. Set in the proverbial boomtowns of West Texas, Landman is a modern-day tale of fortune-seeking in the world of oil rigs. The series is an upstairs-downstairs story of roughnecks and wildcat billionaires fueling a boom so big, it's reshaping our climate, our economy, and our geopolitics. Stream the new series Landman November 17th exclusively on Paramount+. Head to ParamountPlus.com to try it free.
Welcome to Haunting History, the podcast that reaches back into the past for the events that still haunt us today. Tales of true crime, mystery, and the macabre. And when we're lucky, the stories were history and the people who lived it and the paranormal meet. Now, who doesn't love a good ghost story, right? Welcome back to Haunting History Podcast. I'm your host, Kat.
And I'm Haley.
And today's episode has been a long time coming. I've always been fascinated by Harry Houdini. And I don't know if it's his magic illusions that fascinate me or that he also had an interest in the supernatural. He was drawn to spiritualism and ended up being one of its biggest opponents. Born Erik Weiss in Budapest on March 24th, 1874, he was the son of a rabbi and one of 7 children. He arrived in the U.S. in July of 1878, living in Appleton, Wisconsin, which doesn't seem like a good start for someone who is going to be as legendary as Houdini was, but he ended up in Appleton, Wisconsin, until his father lost his job as the leader of the Zion Reform Jewish congregation. In 1887, Harry and his father moved to New York in search of a better life, bringing the family along once they got settled. Young Erik took several jobs, making his public debut as a trapeze artist. How much do you know about Harry Houdini, Haley?
I didn't know that.
What, that he started as a trapeze artist?
No.
I mean, did you really know anything about Harry Houdini other than he was a magician?
Probably not, other than he was a magician, no.
He chose the stage name Harry Houdini as a tribute to the French magician Robert Houdin, whose biography had left a profound impact on him. Houdini admired his innovative spirit and hoped to emulate his success in the world of magic. Houdini's career as a magician officially began in 1891. However, the early years were anything but glamorous. He initially focused on sleight of hand, performing card tricks and other small-scale illusions. While Houdini was competent in these skills, he struggled to stand out in a field crowded with talented performers. Critics and fellow magicians often remarked that although Houdini had technical proficiency, he lacked the finesse and elegance that characterized the most celebrated sleight-of-hand artist of his time. This lack of recognition in the early stages of his career could have easily led to discouragement, but Houdini was not one to give up. It was during these challenging times that Houdini began to explore the world of escape acts, a decision that would alter the course of his career and his legacy. Houdini realized that his true talents lay not in the traditional magic tricks of the day, but in the art of escaping from seemingly impossible situations. He started experimenting with handcuffs, ropes, and locks, pushing the boundaries of what an audience could believe possible. His ability to free himself from restraints, often under extreme conditions, captivated audiences and set him apart from other performers. As he perfected these escape acts, Houdini's fame began to grow. What had started as a pivot in his struggling career soon became his defining legacy. By daring to escape from the inescapable, Harry Houdini not only redefined what it meant to be a magician, but he also became a symbol of human preservation and ingenuity. His name would forever be synonymous with the impossible, and he would go down in history not just as a magician, but as the world's greatest escape artist. In 1894, while performing with his brother Theo, who was also known as Dash, Harry Houdini's life took a significant turn, both professionally and personally. At the time, the two brothers were working under the stage name The Brothers Houdini, traveling and performing small magic shows in dime museums and sideshows across the country. It was during one of these performances that Harry met the woman who would not only become his wife, but also his lifelong stage partner and confidant. Her name is Wilhelmina Beatrice Bess Rayner. Interestingly, it was Dash who first caught Bess's eye. Dash had met Bess at Coney Island while she was performing as part of a song and dance act called the Floral Sisters. He was immediately taken by her charm and beauty, and the two began to court. However, as fate would have it, Bess soon found herself drawn to Harry instead. His charisma, ambition, and perhaps the shared passion for the world of performance captured her heart in a way Dash had not. It wasn't long before Bess had made her feelings clear, choosing Harry over his brother. Despite the potential for tension, this turn of events did not sour the relationship between the brothers. In fact, it marked a new chapter in Harry's life. Bess and Harry were married on June 22nd, 1894, in a small ceremony. Their bond was immediate and strong, both personally and professionally. After the marriage, the dynamic of the magic act changed as well. The brothers Houdini became the Houdinis, with Bess stepping in the role of Harry's stage assistant and partner. Bess proved to be much more than a supporting figure in the background. She was an integral part to the act's success, helping Harry develop and perfect many of the routines that would eventually make him famous. Her quick wit and timing and unwavering support enabled Harry to take risks and push the boundaries of his performances. Together, they crafted an act that was not only more polished but more compelling, setting them apart from other performers at the time. The partnership between Harry and Bess extended beyond the stage. Their marriage was a true partnership in every sense, with Bess being Harry's competent manager and closest companion throughout his career. She was there during the highs and the lows, helping him navigate the challenges of show business and encouraging him to continue pursuing his dreams, even when success seemed elusive. Bess's presence in Harry's life marked the beginning of his transformation from a struggling performer to a legendary figure in the world of magic. Their relationship was a testament to the power of love and partnership, proving that behind every great magician, there is often an equally great woman. They worked together in sideshows and museums, honing his skill as an escape artist until 1899, when they met Martin Beck, who was impressed with the Houdinis and Harry's handcuff escape act. He became their manager and within a short time had Harry booked in all the top vaudeville houses in the U.S. In 1900, Beck booked them for a tour of Europe. Although not an instant hit, a demonstration of his handcuff escape at Scotland Yard left the police so baffled they landed a 6-month gig paying him what would be $10,000 a week now. He came back to the U.S. and worked from 1907 until 1920, escaping from straitjackets, handcuffs, and milk cans, usually in full sight of the public, oftentimes hanging from a building or in a body of water. The thrill of watching someone defy death made Houdini famous. Houdini's interest in spiritualism initially stemmed from curiosity. For those unfamiliar, was a religious and philosophical movement that emerged in the 19th century. It centers around the belief that spirits of the dead can communicate with the living, typically through mediums or other supernatural means. Spiritualists believed they could receive guidance and comfort from their departed loved ones, who they thought could offer wisdom from beyond the grave. You know that your ancestors practiced spiritualism as a religion.
Yeah, found that in our family tree, right?
It was exciting for me because I've always been fascinated by ghost stories and mediums and life after death. And one night I was working on our family tree and I was following my mom's line, and it was super late at night. It was probably like 2:00 in the morning. I couldn't sleep. And I was just sitting pretty much in the dark on a computer. And I found a census record of one of my ancestors that I'd heard about. So I was like kind of following their family tree, and the census came up, and this census in particular listed religions. Like they don't all list the same thing, but this one in particular listed religions. And it said spiritualism. And I almost fell out of my seat because I always, and I've said this a million times on this podcast, when you chase your family tree, you find things that explain you today, like whether it's a like or a career choice or something. You always find someone in your tree that kind of defines things for you. And for me, I mean, always, since I was a little kid and we grew up in a little town, we grew up in the little, near the historic district of Orange in California. And everyone says it's very haunted. Since I was little, like 7 or 8 years old, I would walk past these old buildings and try and imagine who lived there before and what ghosts there were there now. So for me to find that in the middle of the night, it like a light bulb went off. I'm like, oh, there it is. That's my fascination with ghosts right there. I had people that practice as a religion to believe basically in ghosts, right?
Yeah.
So spiritualism is kind of a big thing for me I would not have practiced that religion in my lifetime, but it's just fascinating to me that people did and that my own ancestors did. And spiritualism attracted many notable figures during its height. A famous spiritualist, if you were listening to our podcast for a while, was Sarah Winchester of the Winchester Mansion fame. She was a spiritualist. Others from that era included Mae West, who had her own spiritual advisor and made numerous trips to Lilydale, which was a spiritualist camp outside of New York. Queen Victoria was also deeply influenced by spiritualism, stricken with grief after the death of her beloved husband, Prince Albert, so grieved that she wore black and mourning jewelry for the rest of her life. The queen sought to reach out to her deceased husband through a 13-year-old medium named Robert James, who conducted séances at Buckingham Palace. Victoria, convinced of Robert's authenticity because during these sessions he would use pet names that only Albert had called her. The queen even sought political advice through mediums, believing her late husband continued to guide her from the afterlife. Perhaps the most significant influence on Houdini's interest in spiritualism was his close friend, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. You probably don't know who that is, Haley.
No idea.
The famed creator of Sherlock Holmes is Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Doyle was a fervent believer in spiritualism and firmly believed in the power of mediums to connect to the dead, which his wife was a medium, and he had firm beliefs in her abilities. And I believe that they lost a child, and if I'm wrong, I apologize profusely, but I didn't follow that I didn't turn that corner and start researching that, but he was the one that convinced Houdini that spiritualism was real and mediums were real. And in 1887, he famously declared, Doyle did, he famously declared that he was absolutely certain that intelligence could exist apart from the body, and that after weighing the evidence, I can no more doubt the existence of the phenomena than I could doubt the existence of lions in Africa. His conviction in the supernatural was unshakable, and he saw spiritualism as a genuine science and a way to bridge the gap between the living and the dead. However, for Houdini, he was far more skeptical, so he was more like you. Well, he was fascinated with the possibility of communicating with the dead, especially after his mother died, whom he adored. He will forever call himself a mama's boy, like he loved his mother dearly. His experience as a magician made him acutely aware of the potential for trickery. He attended hundreds of séances, often in disguise, and quickly came to the conclusion that many mediums were using deceptive practices rather than mystical powers. He famously remarked, "It takes a flim-flammer to catch a flim-flammer."
I like flim-flammer.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different versions of there. Like, it takes a con artist to catch a con artist. It takes a flim-flammer to catch a flim-flammer. He used a bunch of different terminology for the same thing, but he felt with his abilities as a magician that he was it was much easier for him to see through the fake mediums. He expressed his belief that only someone skilled in the art of deception could see through the frauds. So he thought he was with the right person to do it. His skepticism led him on a mission to expose fraudulent mediums and psychics. He would attend seances with a police officer and a reporter with him, using his knowledge of magic and illusion to reveal how the mediums were duping their clients. Houdini's crusade against spiritualism was detailed in his book, A Magician Among the Spirits, where he recounted his experiences and exposed the tricks of the trade. Unfortunately, though, Houdini's relentless pursuit of the truth caused a rift between him and Doyle. Their once close friendship deteriorated as Houdini continued to debunk mediums whom Doyle generally believed in. Doyle was convinced that Houdini's own extraordinary abilities, his seemingly impossible escape from chairs, coffins, straitjackets, were also evidence of supernatural powers. He even believed that Houdini was unconsciously a medium himself, using psychic abilities to perform his feats. However, Houdini maintained that his acts were based purely on skill, practice, and physical endurance, and not on any supernatural aid. This fundamental disagreement over the existence and authenticity of spiritualism ultimately led to the end of their friendship, with Doyle remaining a staunch believer and Houdini a dedicated skeptic until his death. And that makes me sad. Just the thought that the creator of Sherlock Holmes was like besties with Harry Houdini. Like, how cool is that? I mean, all they needed is throw in Edgar. No, it makes me sad they were no longer friends anymore.
Oh.
Doyle remained a staunch believer, and Houdini, till he died, did not believe in it at all. And he actually called out, I guess Houdini was kind of a little asshole sometimes. He called out Doyle, saying that, like, basically condemning his friend about believing, like kind of making fun of him, poking fun at him, like ridiculing him for believing in something he believed was so obviously fake. Houdini devoted much of his time to writing and lecturing, and he wrote several books. He also offered substantial rewards to any psychic or medium who could produce a supernatural phenomenon that he could not replicate through ordinary means, and the challenge went unmet, which just confirmed for him more that it was all fake. His relentless pursuit of the truth earned him as much fame for his debunking efforts as it had for his performance on the stage. In later years, freed from financial worries, thanks to his success, Houdini focused on perfecting his craft and expanding his knowledge of magic. He created new, more daring escapes, refined his existing routines, ensuring that his performances remained unparalleled. Houdini's tricks were uniquely his own, devised, executed, and kept secret by him, despite the many imitators who tried to replicate his acts, and the full secrets of his most astounding feats died with him. The circumstances leading to his death were as dramatic and mysterious as the man himself. While performing at the Princess Theatre in Montreal, Houdini was approached in his dressing room by a student named J. Gordon Whitehead. Whitehead asked Houdini if he believed in the miracles of the Bible and whether it was true that he could withstand punches to the stomach without feeling pain. Always eager to demonstrate his physical endurance, Houdini confirmed that he could endure a great deal. However, before he could even prepare, Whitehead delivered a series of sudden, forceful blows to Houdini's abdomen while he was still laying on the couch. Despite the severe pain that followed, Houdini continued his performance that night and for several days thereafter. His relentless commitment to his craft drove him to ignore the worsening pain as he traveled to Detroit for his next show. Even when a doctor finally examined him and discovered that Houdini had a high fever, which was likely a sign of a serious infection, Houdini refused to cancel his performances. The doctor advised immediate surgery, but Houdini, true to his showman spirit, insisted that the show must go on. During one of his performances in Detroit, he collapsed on stage, but was revived and astonishingly finished the show. It wasn't until October 24th that he was finally hospitalized. For a few days, there was hope that Houdini might recover, but his condition deteriorated and he passed away on October 31st in 1926, Halloween night. Houdini's funeral was held in New York on November 4th and was attended by over 2,000 people. The crest of the Society of American Magicians, of which he created and was the president of, was actually on his coffin, and the members performed the broken wand ceremony, which I had to look it up. It sounds so freaking cool. The ritual is performed at magicians' funerals, signifying the magician's death, and this fascinated, like all rituals do. So I looked it up on magician.org, and the broken wand ceremony is a symbolic ritual performed by magicians to honor and commemorate the passing of a fellow magician. The ceremony signifies the end of the deceased magician's ability to perform magic, symbolizing that their magic wand is broken and can no longer be used. And I just wrote a really brief explanation of the ceremony because I thought it was really cool. The broken wand ceremony is typically conducted during the funeral or memorial service of a magician, and he was president. Just a reminder, he was president of this organization. A wand, which represents the magician's tool of trade, is broken either in half or into several pieces by a fellow magician or a group of magicians. This act symbolizes the end of the magician's earthly abilities to perform magic, acknowledging that their magical powers have ceased with their passing. The ritual often includes words of remembrance, with fellow magicians sharing stories or memories of the deceased and celebrating their contributions to the world of magic. The breaking of the wand is often accompanied by a brief moment of silence or a few solemn words such as "the wand is broken, the magic is gone." The ceremony is both a tribute and a farewell, honoring the magician's life, their artistry, and their impact on the community. It is a deeply respected tradition within the magic community, offering a final and meaningful gesture of respect for the departed magician. The one held for Harry Houdini was one of the most famous of the broken wand ceremonies. And since his funeral in 1926, it has since become a tradition for magicians worldwide. And I think that's so fascinating. I'd be curious if any of our listeners are magicians. And Charles, I don't know if you listen, Charles Spratley, you know who I'm talking to. If you've ever seen one of these broken wand ceremonies, I think it would be so fascinating to see that. Immediately following his death, mediums and psychics came out of the woodwork, claiming to have received communication from the man who spent, ironically, a great portion of his life opposing their existence and their capabilities. Along with that, the stories of the hauntings of Houdini's ghost blew up too. Having lived full-time in New York, Houdini and Bess spent time in Los Angeles while he was working in films. It's said that he stayed at his friend and associate's Ralph Walker's home, located at 2435 Laurel Canyon Boulevard. Ralph owned homes on both sides of Laurel Canyon, And his big house, as people called it, was supposedly the location of many of the séances that Bess held after Houdini's death. And it's said it's also where Houdini practices underwater escapes in the pool. Some say that Houdini never lived or even stayed at Laurel Canyon House. In fact, while I was a tour guide in Hollywood, it was often contested that he ever lived or stayed there. And even with all the stories of Houdini haunting the place, sightings of him standing on the ruins of the stairs and such, it's actually unlikely that he ever lived there. In fact, there isn't even any evidence of him being friends with Ralph Walker, to be honest. When he was filming in Hollywood, it's more likely that he stayed at the Alexandria or the Knickerbocker. But Houdini's wife did own a home on Laurel Canyon after his death, and it's not the same house that they always say is haunted by Houdini. It may explain why the story surfaced of him haunting the area. Suffice it to say that the stories of Houdini's tortured soul hanging out near Laurel Canyon intersection is very suspect. Besides, there's better places that might have a stronger draw to his ghost. The second most common story of Houdini's ghost comes from Niagara Falls, Canada, where the Houdini Magical Hall of Fame is located. It opened in 1968 until a suspicious fire destroyed the building and the famous the original water torture cell, and closed the museum permanently. I could imagine that here's the thing. I don't know. I'm going to go on, but I have a theory. The famous magician had left all of his stuff to his brother Hardin, who was instructed to ironically burn it, which is what happened in the museum. So his secrets were never revealed, but instead he held onto them for 40 years before moving them to the museum. Seems Houdini may have been very unhappy about that. During the museum's existence, there were 6 fires, a robbery, and a freak accident where one of the directors of the museum walked through a plate glass window. Is it possible that Houdini showed his displeasure at his wishes being ignored by creating havoc and fire from beyond the grave? In a book written by John Savoy called The Shadows of Niagara, he says that yearly seances were also held at the museum. In one of the last ones, a medium named Anne Fisher asked Houdini to make himself known, telling him that this would be the last try to reach him. Instantly, a pot of flowers fell to the ground and a book about Houdini followed, opening to a page with a Houdini poster that was titled Do Spirits Return? An often spoken of area of haunting is in Detroit, the place that Harry died, between the theater and his last performance, the hospital he died in, and the funeral home. There are many reports of Harry's ghost, even though none of those places are still a theater, hospital, or funeral home. Many believe that Harry may be stuck, and it's technically the only place he could never escape from. Another place claiming to be Houdini's afterlife stomping ground is Mr. Sorley's Old Ale House in East Village of New York. The legend is that if you saw a cat in the window, it meant that Houdini's ghost was there. The bar dating back to 1854, which to me is, with that long of a history, they would have a lot more ghost stories than just Harry hanging around. But it's one of New York's oldest. It's said that a pair of handcuffs hanging off one of the rails belonged to Harry Houdini, and it's keeping his spirits tied to the place. Many claim the handcuff and the cat are stuff of legend, and considering Harry was a teetotaler, he didn't drink, it's not likely that if he didn't hang out in a bar when he was alive, he probably wouldn't hang out in one when he was dead. Prior to his death, Houdini and his beloved wife, Bess, made a solemn and deeply personal pact. As Houdini's skepticism of spiritualism grew, his fascination with the possibility of life after death never faded entirely. Despite his public efforts to debunk fraudulent mediums, there was a part of Houdini that still longed to believe in the existence of life after death, especially after the loss of his mother, who he adored. It was the blend of skepticism and hope that led him and Bess to agree on a secret code, a word that Houdini could use to communicate with her from beyond the grave if it were possible. The word, only known to the two of them, would be the ultimate proof that there was indeed life after death. The code was something deeply personal and specific, designed in such a way that it could not be guessed or replicated by anyone else. Houdini believed that if anyone could reach out from the other side, it would be him, using the skill and determination that allowed him to escape from countless physical restraints during his lifetime. After Houdini's death on Halloween in 1926, Bess was heartbroken but committed to their pact. For the next 10 years, she held an annual séance on the anniversary of his death, hoping against hope to hear the secret word that would confirm her husband's presence and the existence of an afterlife. These séances were often conducted with great anticipation, sometimes in the presence of close friends, sometimes with the involvement of professional mediums, and sometimes alone in the quiet of her own thoughts. Each year, as the séances passed without a sign, Bess's hope began to wane, but her determination remained. She was aware of the irony that surrounded these attempts. Houdini, who spent so much of his life exposing the tricks of fraudulent mediums, was now the very spirit she sought to connect with through those same methods. Despite this, the love and bond she shared with Harry compelled her to continue year after year. In 1936, on the 10th anniversary of Houdini's death, Beth held what would be the final seance. The seance was conducted on the rooftop of the Knickerbocker Hotel in Hollywood and was attended by friends and reporters. The event filled with emotion, not only for Bess, but for those who had followed Houdini's career and his crusade against spiritualism. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as they waited for a sign, a whisper, or any indication that Houdini was there. But once again, there was nothing. No secret word, no message from beyond. After this final attempt, Bess made the decision to end the yearly seances. She reportedly said 10 years is long enough to wait for any man, and she acknowledged that it was time to let go. Bess never heard the secret word they had agreed upon, and with that, she accepted that either there was no afterlife or that communication from it was impossible, even for someone as extraordinary as Harry Houdini. Which I have to tell you a story. I'm sure you heard the story before, but obviously our listeners haven't. So you have a great uncle, Uncle Milo,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a orthopedic surgeon. He was a man of science. And one day we were at some family function and him and I started talking about science and non-sciencey things. And somehow we got on the subject of life after death. And I said that I don't know if I believe in ghosts, but I want to believe in ghosts. And I want to believe that this isn't it. And that I was fascinated by the idea of a medium or ghost like I always am. And he kept saying, there's no such thing. And I kept saying, well, you don't know if there's no such thing. And he's like, I'm a scientist. I know there's no such thing as life after death. When you die, you die. That's it. And so we had this conversation. It was probably maybe 30 minutes. It wasn't that big of a deal. And then we moved on. And I mean, the whole family was there. There's probably like 60 people there. And we stopped talking about it. And like 2 weeks later, I got a letter from him in the mail. This was only I guess it's been like 10 years now. But at the time, there was no need to send a letter. He could have called me or emailed me or something. But he sent me a letter. And it was in a big manila envelope. And in the envelope was, I want to say it was Time magazine. It was one of those magazines. And the cover of it was one of the more popular mediums of today. I'm not going to say who it was, but it said across the front of it like fraud or something. And he had this handwritten letter in there saying how, see, even the magazines know that there's no such thing as a medium. And he reiterated all his feelings about it again. And so instead of calling him, I wrote him back a letter and I explained all the reasons why not only did I kind of believe, but it's just that I kind of want to believe. I don't want to believe that it just ends here, that we're able to communicate after death and stuff. So we started this little letter exchange where we'd write letters back and forth. And he said, okay, why don't we do a Harry Houdini? If there is such a thing as afterlife, I will come to you with a secret word or secret gesture or something that someone will tell you, and then you will know, confirming that there is an afterlife, right? So I said, okay. And then at the next family function, he's like, so are we going to do this or not? And I said, yeah, what can we come up with that is common enough that it could be said, but so uncommon that it would be said about a story about you and I? Like if I sat down with a medium a year after you passed away, it has to be a word or a symbol or something that is so abstract, but not so abstract that it wouldn't be said. And he said, okay, what do you want it to be? So we kind of went back and forth about what we want it to be. And I said, and at the time we were actually at his house in San Diego, which I associate San Diego obviously with the beach and everything. And I said, okay, how about dolphin? Let's just say it's the word dolphin, because I associate you with the beach in San Diego and everything. And dolphin would not be that weird for someone to say, but it has nothing to do with you and I. And he's like, okay, that's our secret. Our secret word is dolphin. When I pass away, and I should clarify that when we were having this conversation, I should clarify that he was probably in his late 80s. I don't know exactly how old he was. He may have even been older than that. So we were going based on the thought process that he would pass away before me, which he did. And after he had passed away, his wife was still alive. And then his daughters, who you obviously we were all very close to, took care of his wife. And then when she passed away, it'd probably been a couple more years. She had passed away maybe a year later. And Dad and I got a phone call to go down to their house in San Diego. And there was stuff there that they wanted us to look at if there was anything that we wanted as a keepsake that belonged to Helen and Milo. So we went, we took you guys with us. You guys were kind of young then. And we took you with us. And on the table, there was this giant, gorgeous house made out of glass. It was the most beautiful house. And they had a giant dining room, and the dining room table was covered in things. And they were like, just take whatever you want. And I was like, I feel weird. There's really nothing I want. It was like glasses and dinnerware and things like that. And I was like, it feels kind of weird. And she goes, oh, no, this isn't for you. One of the daughters, this isn't for you. I have something in my dad's office for you. And I was like, well, why? And she goes, well, because I know that you and my dad used to write letters, and he adored you. He thought you were so fun to talk to. And there was something on his desk that I thought I would like you to have something from his desk, because he would sit at his desk and write you the letters, and sit at his desk and read the letters. And there's just something here that I thought you should have. And so we went in her office, and she picked up, and I still have this on my desk, right? It is a little glass paperweight of a dolphin. The thing is, when she gave it to me, I almost passed out. I was like, what? Are you freaking kidding me? Why are you giving me this? And I kind of questioned her around, and bless her heart, she's no longer with us either. But I don't know for a fact that I don't know for a fact that her dad did not tell her what our secret word was. Right?
Yes, you don't know for a fact, but based on his personality and him genuinely
wanting
this to be his experiment per se, I don't think he would have said anything to her.
Yeah, I kind of don't either. And I still have it, like I'm looking at it right now. I still have it on my desk. It's probably, I don't know how many years it's been now, but it always reminds me that, and he had brought it up and said, let's do the Harry Houdini thing and come up with a code word. And we did. And our code word was dolphin. And somehow after he passed away, I ended up with his dolphin paperweight. And I just think that's such a cool thing. I've never been to a meeting where anyone's told me anything else about him. I've really been to a meeting for myself anyways, but I've been in groups where mediums were talking and no one said, well, who's the blonde lady with the elderly family member who gave her a dolphin? Like, no one's ever said anything or confirmed it for me, but I do have the dolphin. And if you're out there, Milo, and you can hear me, you give me hope that there is life after death. The 10-year saga of Bess's séances became an enduring part of the Houdini legend, a testament to the deep love that they shared and the hope that even the most rational minds sometimes harbor for the unknown. Bess's unwavering commitment to their pact speaks to the profound bond between them, a bond that transcended even death in a way. Although she never received the confirmation she sought, her efforts added another layer to the legacy of Harry Houdini, one that is as much about love and faith as it is about magic and illusion. Thank you for listening to this episode of Haunting History Podcast. We love hearing from you, so be sure to like, follow, and comment on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Haunting History Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to all your favorites.
Visit our website at hauntinghistorypodcast.com for more information on each episode, links to our Patreon page, and all of our social media platforms.
Until next time, I'm Kat.
I'm Haley.
Remember, the living are far scarier than any ghost.